Here is the essence of the verses 29 to 39. Gandivam sramsite hastat tvaccha eva paridakhyate nacha saknomi avasthatum Brahmati ivacha me manaha. Nimittani cha pasyami viparitani kesava sachasreya anupasyami hatva swajanam ahave. Na kankshe vijayam Krishna na cha rajyam sukhani cha kim nah rajyesa govinda kim bhognai jivate nava. Esham ardhe kankshitam naha rajyam bhogaha sukhani cha te ime avastitaha yuddhe pranan tvaktva dhanani cha. Acharya pitarak putra tadha evacha pitamaha matulaha susuraha pautraha syalaha sambandhinaha tatha. Yetannu hastum ichchami gnatah api madhusudana api trailokya rajyasya hetoho kim nu mahikrute. Nihatya dhartarashtran nakha pritis syata janardhana papam eva ashrayet asman hatva etan atatayanaha. Tasmat na arhaha vayum hantum dhartarashtran swabhandavan swajanam hi katham hatva sukhina syama madhava. Yadyapi etena pasyanti lobho pahata chetasaha kulakshaya krutam dosham mitradrohe cha patakam. Katham nagneyam asmatha papat asmat nivartitum kulakshaya krutam dosham prapasyabdhi janardana. Gandiva, the bow, slips from my hand and even my skin burns all over. I am unable to stand and my mind seems to whirl. And I see adverse omens, O Keshava, nor can I see good from killing my kinsmen in the battle. I desire not victory, O Krishna, not even a kingdom, nor pleasure. Of what avail will a kingdom be to us, or enjoyments, or even life, O Govinda? Those for whose sake we desire a kingdom, the enjoyments and comforts, are here on the battlefield having resigned their lives and riches. Teachers, uncles, sons and likewise grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law and other kinsmen are here. O Madhusudana, these I do not wish to kill. Though killed myself, even for the sake of sovereignty of the three worlds, how much less for this world? What happiness would come to us from slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra, O Janardhana? Only sin would come upon us through killing these aggressors. Therefore, it would not be right for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our own kinsmen. How should we be happy after killing our own people, O Madhava? Although their minds clouded by greed, they see no wrong in bringing destruction to the family and no sin in treachery to friends. How should we not know to turn away from this sin we who clearly see the wrong in bringing destruction upon the family, O Janardhana. Here, Arjuna, the seeker of truth, takes his stand on the battlefield between the opposing forces of good and evil. When his consciousness was raised by a wave of love by Lord Krishna, he started seeing the reality of the battlefield of life. Here he sees the conflict of opposing forces as the very core of life. He looks deeply into his own mind and finds 16 fundamental problems that form the basis of all conflicts in life. He ponders over these fundamental problems inherent in life with great intensity, and he becomes completely identified with them. He is seeking for a solution on the level of this impossibility because he wants to find solutions. He seeks for a solution so that life may be lived free from problems. But he cannot find solutions dwelling in the problem itself. These problems and the situation could confront a seeker of truth. Resolving this extreme situation and these problems of life, only Lord Krishna can bring the solutions. When Arjuna says that the Gandiva is slipping from his hand and that he is unable to stand and the mind seems to twirl, it is indicating that Arjuna has been overcome with love, which threatens to overthrow the cause of righteousness. So it is no surprise that he feels weak and unable to stand. Arjuna's fast grip on the Gandiva has been in response to the call of righteousness. His mind was completely dominated by the call of duty, and it was this which made him hold the Gandiva fast. But now, the wave of love created by Lord Krishna filled his heart, and in its fullness, it became equal to the power of his mind. So the power of mind no longer being dominant, his grip becomes loose and the Gandiva slips from his hand. Never before had the bow slipped from Arjuna's hand. Arjuna is a brave man and his mind is strong, even when his heart is overwhelmed by the force of love. His mind is fully alert and active. It is this alert mind which will change the course of his heart. We will see that in the subsequent verses. Next, he says, I see all adverse omens, and I cannot see any good from killing my kinsmen in the battle, O Keshava. Keshava is Lord Krishna here. The word killing is coming from the mind, and it is dedicated to the truth and righteousness and the destruction of evil. The word my kinsmen is the cry of the heart. Arjuna's heart, full of love, allows him to see his opponents only as his kinsmen and not as the aggressor or the enemy. In his deep concern, not only is he feeling love for all his kinsmen, but also at the same time he is experiencing grief for their destruction in the battle. His heart is torn between these two feelings. Deep within himself, he is immersed in the feeling of the situation and its consequences, and hence he visualizes adverse omens. adverse omens. The word Shreyas here means good, and this good is the spiritual good or the spiritual comfort. It further means evolution or fulfillment, the security and accomplishment that lies in spiritual freedom. Arjuna sees that there is no Shreyas or spiritual comfort in killing his kinsmen, but this is the act that awaits him. So he feels that under the circumstances, he can do nothing but reject all that could possibly be desired. Now Arjuna says that he does not desire any victory, nor a kingdom, nor any pleasures, and he asks, of what avail will a kingdom be to us, or these enjoyments, or even life under this situation. Here Arjuna is analyzing the situation in a very unbiased manner and with great presence of mind. He rejects the validity of victory, a kingdom, and pleasures, if there are any, just for selfish ends. He raises his voice against the corrupting influences of a kingdom, the pleasure and power. He has seen in the case of Duryodhana how they can blind a man's vision and cause the destruction of a whole civilization. So he sees the battle to be damaging to the body and mind, and to the surroundings, and to a civilization. He is questioning of what use will this be to him and to his aims in life. He finds that nothing in the outside world is of interest to him personally, because he sees life is for others. He sees that his life is for others. In his deep contemplation, Arjuna finds that his life is a dedicated way of life. It is dedicated to others. So he challenges the validity of victory, the pleasures, kingdom, and even life in which desire has no chance of fulfillment. It shows his greatness where the desire of a great man rises to support others and rejoices in the happiness that others derive from such support. Any desire presents no problem if it is allowed to flow freely, but here Arjuna sees that there are a lot of obstructions and resistance to the desire. Arjuna is further saying, those for whose sake we are desiring a kingdom, enjoyments and comforts, they are all here in the battlefield, having resigned their lives and riches. Arjuna has higher states of consciousness. He is devoid of any thought of self-interest, and he is completely dedicated in the interest of others. This is the status of truly great men. Living, they live for others. Dying, they die for others. Now a question may be asked, if Arjuna's character shows such greatness of heart and mind, why does he really come to the battlefield prepared to fight? Arjuna is truly bent upon resisting evil, but here he is not interested in killing people. He wants to destroy the evil without destroying the evildoer. It is a noble ideal. His aim is to destroy the evil on earth, if possible, without bringing down upon the society the untold suffering and destruction of the war. Only a man of such an ideal character can speak as does Arjuna, and we will see that in the next 2 verses. Arjuna continues, teachers, uncles, sons, and likewise grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other kinsmen are all here. Arjuna finds that love is pouring life into his heart from all directions, from all sides, and leaving it full. In the vast field of love, there are really no problems. This is an innocent field of life, pure love. But problems arise when attachment or detachment overshadow this pure love. Here, Arjuna is caught up with this attachment to his people, his kinsmen. And he is saying to Lord Krishna, O Madhusudana, these I do not wish to kill, even though I am killed, even for the sake of sovereignty of the 3 worlds, and how much less for this world. This shows Arjuna's great character. He stands for the principles, and nothing can tempt him to deny the high ideals of life. This is why his thinking is so uncompromising. He is saying at any cost he cannot think of killing them, even for the sake of sovereignty of the 3 worlds. He cannot kill them. Such is the height of human consciousness which upholds Arjuna even at this hour of his great concern. And Arjuna is further asking, what happiness could come to us from slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra, O Janardana? Only sin would come upon us through killing these aggressors. Here we begin to see that there is a beginning of a change in Arjuna's vision. Before, he was referring to as his own kinsmen, and now he is saying as sons of Dhritarashtra. So there is a shift happening with the mind. The mind is becoming more active, although the heart is full of love still. He begins to see his kinsmen as aggressors, and the reality begins to dawn. Seeing them in this light, Arjuna asks, what happiness could come to us from slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? And when he starts thinking in these terms, he finds killing is a sin. The act of killing as such is sinful. The act of killing as such is sinful. And this is Arjuna's main concern here. Arjuna sees killing as sin even when he is on the battlefield. The act of killing does not produce life-supporting influences to anyone at any time. Killing is a sin for all time. No matter who is killed, killing is a sin. The pain and suffering caused in the act of killing produce negative influences in creation, and the reaction recoils on the killer. So Arjuna repeatedly says, only sin would come upon us. For a warrior, the killing of aggressors is supposed to be a right action. The aggressor's life is put to an end. So the aggressor's life is put to an end, and thereby he is prevented from producing more negative influence for himself and for others. But Arjuna is deeply evaluating the situation from every side. He is at a high pitch of mental and emotional activity. He is expressing this innocent truth, the innocent utterance of this truth. Only sin would come upon us through killing these aggressors. And what happiness would come to us? Only sin would come upon us. So here he is deeply pondering on this two issues here, happiness and suffering. He is considering both happiness and suffering as well as the sin and the virtue. For suffering results from sin and happiness results from virtue. Now Arjuna's arguments have gone further. Previously it was only his wish not to kill, but now he finds that it is not right for him to engage in killing. So he says to Lord Krishna, therefore it would not be right for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our own kinsmen. How should we be happy after killing our own people, O Madhava? He is emphasizing that he does not even see any happiness to justify killing. This does not mean that happiness is the criterion of action for Arjuna. Happiness has certainly to be taken into account while considering the performance of any action, because the aim of any action is to increase the happiness. The very purpose of creation and of evolution is expansion of happiness. So if happiness does not result from an action, then that action defeats the very purpose of action, and its performance cannot be justified. And that is why Arjuna is saying killing would not be right for us, because it will not bring him happiness. And he further says, although their minds clouded by greed, they see no wrong in bringing destruction to the family and no sin in treachery to friends. How should we not know to turn away from this sin? We who clearly see the wrong in bringing destruction upon the family, O Janardana. Arjuna expresses his concern over the influence of greed that has blinded the vision of his kinsmen and has prevented them from seeing the wrong. He tries to understand why he is unable to take a right course of action when he sees the truth of the situation, and even more so when he knows what is right. His tone indicates that he does not give as much importance to the actual destruction as to the wrong that will result from it. But for all his purity and clarity of vision, Arjuna fails to see the right way out of this sin of killing that awaits him. So he turns to the Lord to receive the light. Such moments in life make a man fall at the feet of God. Moments when he sees and yet does not see. Moments when he wants to act yet he is unable to act. Certainly, man is the master of his own destiny. He has free will, the greatest of God's gifts to him, whereby he has complete freedom of action. But having performed an action, he has to bear its consequences, for reaction is always equal to action. When we further investigate the invisible mechanics of nature, we find that everything in the universe is directly connected with everything else. Everything is constantly being influenced by everything else. No wave of the ocean is independent of any other. Each certainly has its individuality, but it is not isolated from the influence of other waves. Every wave has its own course to follow, but this course is dependent on that of every other wave. So the life of any individual is a wave in the ocean of cosmic life. Here every wave constantly influences the course of every other wave. When people behave rightly, a corresponding atmosphere is naturally produced, and when such an influence is dominant, the individual's tendencies are affected by it. There is this atmosphere of grace and glory. And if in such an atmosphere of grace and glory, an individual is tempted to follow a wrong path, he is protected by the unseen influence of righteousness which surrounds him. Similarly, when a man fails in his efforts, the unseen working of nature is behind that failure. So no amount of intellectual analysis can reveal to him why the failure has happened. He must rise to another level and realize the working of nature and the power of the nature behind this failure. He must rise to understand the laws of nature and the cosmic law which underlies all of them. Here Arjuna is failing to understand why his decision to refrain from battle produces no result, and he continues to be drawn into the battle. This is not because he is in a state of confusion, but because no amount of intellectual clarity can provide anyone with insight into the complex workings of divine nature. Arjuna's consciousness is pure, and although his consciousness is pure, he has not yet fathomed the absolute being which is the field of cosmic law. Again, he has not yet fathomed the absolute being which is the field of the cosmic law, which means that he has not had the self-realization, the realization of himself. This is why he fails to see that he is living in an atmosphere saturated with evil influence in which it is not possible for virtue to survive for long. Arjuna is trying to refrain from fighting out of consideration for family and caste, the dharma of the castes, and he is not aware of the absolute state of dharma, whose power is leading him to fight. Not knowing this absolute state of dharma, he fails to see why he is unable to act according to his feelings. Now the following verses present Arjuna's argument on how the path of evolution becomes extinct and bears witness to his concern for society. This is the essence of the 10 verses. I will just add a few words to bring the completion. Arjuna represents every serious seeker. His doubts and concerns are that of a thinking seeker. Utter confusion, dilemma, is the first thing any person has to face in his life for enlightenment. If one has not faced this dilemma, this conflict, and this confusion, then the possibility for transformation has not yet opened. When one is in dilemma, then one should be clear that the seeking has started in us. Arjuna has become a seeker of truth. He was no longer satisfied with what he had imbibed in all these years. What he has gained, what he has learned in all these years and all his life. He is a very learned man. He has studied the Shastras. He knows the Stotras and the Sutras. He wanted to know more. He wished to go beyond these Shastras and these scriptures. The first chapter in the Gita is referred to as Arjuna Vishada Yoga. And Vishada represents many things. It has many meanings: grief, sorrow, despondency, despair, depression, powerlessness, dilemma, and more. Here we are seeing Arjuna in a dilemma, and he is wondering that all the lessons that he has learnt in his life, all the knowledge he has gained in his life, is it really true? Is it really true after all? Krishna is being referred by many names in Bhagavad Gita, and it is all contextual. The word Krishna itself refers to his dark blue color, the color of the sky, and also refers to the infinity of the sky. It also means the Sachitananda, the truth, consciousness, bliss, and whose grace liberates and brings liberation to those who surrender to him. Krishna as Govinda is the ultimate knower of the mind, body and being of all living creatures. He knows all of his creation, and he graces liberation to those who surrender to him. We will continue. Jai Gurudev. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu.
शास्त्रं ते